As entrepreneurs, we have external things that are occurring in our lives. You have to work on the external and the internal simultaneously. I'm happy to teach you techniques, strategies, and tactics that I've utilized to actually get stuff built and in the marketplace. This is how you organize and take risk in a spiritually conscious way. As a spiritual entrepreneur, there's really two things that we have to figure out. We have to figure out this whole idea of being, the being part, and then the doing part. Being and doing. And the being part is quite comprehensive, and the doing part is quite comprehensive. So I'm going to bring up a graphic that I worked with our team to produce that'll break down both sides of it, but we're going to start with the being side. And when I pull it up, feel free to zoom in, take a look at some of the words that are on the being side. Now, if you look at the being side, and we're going to get to doing next, and feel free to scroll in and look at these words. But I wanted to start with a circle, and at the core of that circle, you have your soul. And going upward, you go from soul to purpose, to agency, to energy, to healing, to values, to identity, to the various roles that we play. I have a role as a father, a role as a CEO, a role as a husband, a role as a friend, a role as a child of God, a role as a brother, a role as a neighbor. And so I have a number of roles. And then you have practices beyond that. And then above that, you have serving and wisdom. And then on the bottom here, you have, we'll start from the outside circle and we'll work our way inward on this one. You have sharing, humility, being, responsibilities, ego, integrity, trauma, biology, faith, calling, and we get back to soul. And then if you head up the circle, you can follow the path that we just went on. And going from my right, inside out, you start with soul, and then you go into intuition, to body, to emotions, to principles, to personality, communication, learning, openness, impeccability. And starting again from soul and going from left to the outside, we have knowing, we have mind, we have triggers, we have beliefs, we have attachments, we have leadership, we have empathy, and then we have connection. And we also in there have a number of other things that we've added to the list here, like ideas like correction and some of these other ones. Now I share this with you because I want you to write down which one do you want to learn about the most? Which one on this list that we have here, concentric circles, which one do you want to learn about the most right now on the being side? Now, as a spiritual entrepreneur, there's a lot to the being side of it. In fact, in many traditions, you spend the majority of your work figuring out the being side of it, and then the doing is much easier. But as entrepreneurs, we have external things that are occurring in our lives. We have internal things occurring as well, and the internal and the externals are linked. But you have to work on the external and the internal simultaneously. You can't just only work on the internal, because like, for example, if all of your people on your team are quitting right now, well, that's an external problem. Yes, there's something that needs to be done on the internal, but you have to go ahead and stop the bleeding on that item and then do the internal work to figure out, well, why have you called this situation in to your experience? Like, what changes do you have to make? Taking full responsibility for cause and effect on the, on the being side of it. But you can't just say, oh, I'll go meditate and we'll solve the problem of turnover or of customers leaving or of systems malfunctioning or products not shipping on time or being over budget or losing money or whatever, right? So we have internal and external. We have being and then we have doing. Now this graphic for the doing side of it, this one is probably going to capture your attention because as entrepreneurs, we love the external. We tend to spend most of our time on the external, right? The external is fun, it's exciting, it's risk-taking. The definition of entrepreneur is just one who organizes and takes risk. That's it. Like we organize and take risk. This is how you organize and take risk in a spiritually conscious way, and you build an ultimately a legacy. So that's good. Thank you. So if we start in the middle here, I've chosen the word calling to kick us off. Now, On the being side of it, I said soul, which is different than calling, right? Our soul has a lot of attributes to it, but our calling is pretty specific. Like, this is what we are here to do. So I started with the core of the external, or the doing, as our calling. So you have your calling, and then from there you have your vision, and we're gonna go up the ladder here, or out. We're gonna move up the circle, I should say. Mission, identity, culture, structure, process, product, community, and legacy. And if we go down from calling, we have future forecasting. Some might call that visioning, but it's a little bit different than a vision. It's like actually looking around corners and saying, this is what the future is going to look like, which is a different skill than just saying, I have a vision. Messaging, brand, relationships. Now in the relationship circle, I'm gonna digress for a minute here. You have relationships. In those relationships, you have vendors, you have team, you have culture, you have people, you have investors, you have legal. So there's a lot of different types of relationships that you have to manage on the doing side of it. And they're different, and managing those relationships is different for each. And then outside of that, we have compensation. And in that circle, and I'm just gonna go around the circle, you have your departments, your meetings, your structure, your risk, your OKRs, your KPIs. These are all very technical terms that some of you that are more advanced in business are very aware of. But if you're not very advanced in business, I'm gonna give you a PhD in business here tonight, because this is basically, the structure layer of how you organize. Remember I said being an entrepreneur is about organizing and taking risk. The structure layer here is organization. And then we go up to process. Right above structure, you have your process. And under process, we have process, administration, projects, and programs. And then above that, you have your product layer. You have product, you have innovation, you have R&D, you have continuous improvement, right? That's a whole layer in the organization. And above that, you have your community layer, which would include your PR, your partnerships, your thought leadership initiatives that you're doing. And then above that, you have your legacy layer, which includes your philanthropy, your impact, your sustainability, and other elements that would be in the legacy layer. So I'm going to start once again, because tonight I wanted to spend most of our energy on doing, because I'm an executional oriented entrepreneur. I'm like a nuts and bolts person. I like to execute. I live for building stuff. So I'm happy to teach you techniques, strategies, and tactics that I've utilized to actually get stuff built and in the marketplace. Now, as many of you know, based on my journey, I had to figure out to be sustainable, successful, and happy as an entrepreneur. I had to figure out the being side, and I had to get that right. Because no matter how much I did, how much I knew on the doing side, which I've known a lot of this for quite some time, I was not effective because I had some big gaps and blind spots on the being side. So no matter how much I worked on the doing side, on the external, the internal would always slow me down and cause problems. Here's both graphics side by side. So you could see this concept of doing and being. On the right side, or my right anyways, you have the being. And on the left side, you have the doing side. And as you can see, it's extensive and there's a lot to learn as a spiritual entrepreneur. The right side is the being and the left side is the doing, my left anyways. And it's extensive. Hopefully these were some wonderful memory joggers, or could get you thinking about this idea of being a spiritual entrepreneur, the external in the doing and the internal in the being, and how you can find the harmony between those two somewhat conflicting energies. We call this polarity, where you take the polarity between being and doing and you harness them together, and as a result, you create a powerful, powerful force in the marketplace. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, help boost this video. I want to get the word out about my work and I could use your help. Thank you so much and God bless. If you want to learn more about how I help entrepreneurs scale their businesses and the work that I do with regard to culture, I'm offering an hour of my time to 8-figure entrepreneurs scaling to 9 figures, or if you're a 9-figure entrepreneur scaling to 10, I'd be happy to talk to you for an hour where we can dive into tactics and strategies on culture or anything else that you're up against as an entrepreneur scaling. It's on me because I want to meet people doing big things in the world, and I want to share with you what I'm up to as well. Go ahead and click on Learn More, book your time, and I look forward to meeting you.